Welcome into the Oddity Shop, you oddballs, the podcast where we
tell you creepy, odd, weird, strange, bizarre, ghosty, conspiracy, mystery stories from around the globe.
Oh,
I changed it a little
I'm
bit.
your curator, Kara, with my other wonderful, beautiful curator, Zachary.
Oh, hi, that's me. We're slap happy. Okay. So we both had long days and we're tired, but we're also kind of giddy. So you just get this.
You get that. That's what you get.
You chose to listen to us.
You clicked our icon.
You picked to be here. Okay. So speaking of people picking to be here, I had a fun phone call today. So for the last year or so, I've been saving towards my retirement pretty aggressively because, let's be honest, you boys started way too late. So now I got a pretty good buffer and the market was doing decently. So I cut some of those percentages down. So I had to talk to my financial advisor today and we're just talking through things. And
like, where's this going?
He's like asking for life updates, you know? So I'm telling him that we're monetizing a little bit on the podcast. And he's like, podcast? He's like, what's your podcast about? I'm like, I'm a fucking
creepy
weirdo.
Weirdo. Did you do that?
Yeah, right.
The podcast where we.
Well, actually, I was like, I'm a fucking weirdo. So we talked about like creepy, weird, bizarre. I did it a little, more normal. He goes, like Mr. Ballin? I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, I've definitely used him for
Mr.
research. Like, I listen to him
hot.
all the time. Yeah, he is. And he's like, I love him. And so he starts telling me about all the paranormal stuff. And then he's telling me about like paranormal things that happened to him growing up. I'm like, okay, here's a link for you. He goes, because I've kind of started to believe like that ghosts might not, or communication with ghosts might be more time slip. I'm like, we did an episode. I'll send you it. I was like, and then he's telling me these stories. I was like, you have to write in. So we might have a new write in soon. I was just like, it ended up, we talked for like 40 minutes and all of a sudden he's like, I was supposed to be in a noon meeting and it was 12:05. I'm like,
no,
I gotta go.
Whoops.
So
does he live in Michigan?
Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. It was like so funny because like I expected him to like just be like, oh, that's cool.
And then
no, we
made
just
him late.
You
made him late. Oh no. That's good though.
Yeah. That's about all that's new with me. Although my back has finally stopped hurting and I'm back to working out and I'm thrilled about that.
Oh, cool.
No more old man status.
So, well, then that leaves me kind of into what I was saying. I think we kind of talked about in the last episode because I apparently make you guys all buy things. Not you guys, but maybe I'll start. But I was talking about my walking pad a little bit last week. So I walked 2 hours or a little over 2 hours on my walking pad yesterday, pretty aggressively. Like, it's not like a treadmill, but it is, you can get cooking. Like I was sweating and stuff, but I told you this earlier, like I was multitasking like a crazy person. Like Zach would have had an anxiety attack. I was listening to a podcast while doing research for another episode, while chatting to Apple tech. And then I was also editing Patreon videos. I don't know.
Then there's me who works from home in dead silence because I am a firm believer that multitasking doesn't exist and I get overstimulated. Now,
what I will say, this is a little bit of a side note, but I meant to tell you this because it's really helped me. Sometimes when I need to sit down and so here's the thing. I can't write an episode and do that. I can do all the research and I can do a bunch of shit like that type of stuff while walking, but I can't sit down and actually write it. I have to sit down and normally I have to be in quiet. But I do like some sort of background noise, but I can't do music. So I started listening to pink noise.
What's that?
It's like I think it's considered a lower frequency than white noise. So it's not, okay. I don't know, but I really liked it. So anyway, that's a thought you could maybe try if you do need something.
I might try.
It's supposed to help. I wanted something, I searched like what sound is good for just like, I don't want to fall asleep. I want to kind of just be motivated and like whatever. And that's the one I found.
Because I will say, I can't listen to lyrical music.
No.
I can listen to like instrumental chill
yeah, that
music.
Makes sense. Yeah. But anyway, my point of the story was, so I was walking on that damn walking pad for, a little over 2 hours last night, which was great. And I felt great, except for I got a blister on my pinky toe.
Oh.
And then I'm an idiot because, you just can't leave things alone. I popped it.
Absolutely.
And then, but because I didn't really have anything to pop it with, I used nail clippers. Oh. And then I went to like pinch it to pop it. And I actually cut off a whole chunk of my skin. So there is a deep chunk of my little baby toe skin gone on the bottom of my toe. And so today was miserable all day.
Yeah.
Because it hurts very bad.
That's a long one to heal too.
I know. And I'm so upset because I'm trying to do 10,000 steps a day.
Remember when I moved into this house and I kicked that nail and took out the chunk? Yeah.
So
I'm still fun time.
Gonna try to get on that walking pad a little bit tonight because I'm at like 7,000 steps. I want to try to at least get as close to 10,000 steps every day.
Okay, so Here's what I did when I did that, though, and it helped me immensely.
Okay.
Because shoes,
Yeah.
awful, because it just squishes it. I got away with wearing slippers to work for like 2 months while it healed, so you could try that.
I can't do that at my work, but
For an injury, you never know.
they'll be like, "Harry, you're stupid. Sit." Okay, anyway, that's enough about us. What do we have to open up this shop?
I have a question for you. Are you surprised?
My God. Tell me.
If given the chance, the opportunity, would you test out teleportation or time travel? And it doesn't have to be one or the other. Would you be like...
Okay, here's the thing. Yes, I 100%, my first instinctual answer would be yes, absolutely. Why the fuck not? But then the thought that has me not wanting to is if I were to get stuck in said place I travel to and I don't want to be there, and then there's not a way for me to communicate to the people that got me there to get back. That would be my only But I hope I know where this is going.
I'm going to re-ask you that question at the end. And if I forget to, you have to remind me to. But, okay, so I've been trying to write this episode since the 8th grade when my teacher told me that I couldn't find enough scholarly sources.
Fuck you, teacher. Unless you liked her.
Meh.
Okay. Fuck you.
It's a conspiracy. It's a mystery. So
Wait,
I'm on a conspiracy.
I'm so sorry.
kick.
It's like when you're like, yeah, that teacher, like when you get on stage, you're doing something really cool, like Taylor Swift. You're like, yeah, to the teacher that said I wouldn't make it. I'm Taylor Swift, like, or whatever. Like, it's like we're on this fucking stupid podcast. Fuck you, teacher, that wouldn't let me write this.
Okay, the reason there was a meh there is, I'm gonna be honest, I deleted her off Facebook like 2 days ago for political differences.
Oh, then yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. Sorry.
Okay, so conspiracy mystery. I'm still on the conspiracy kick. Okay. I've brought it up a couple times on the podcast though, and I've said eventually I'm going to do an episode.
We say that a lot, so I'm trying to remember what.
So I finally have sat down, I know, to put together the Philadelphia experiment story.
Oh,
which is funny because you just did a Pennsylvania story too last week.
Oh yeah, I did.
Okay, we are going. You know me, I usually say the history, story, everything. We're just going all sorts of out of order. I'm taking you first to October 28th, 1943 in Philadelphia during the height of World War II.
Okay.
1943. Yes. So I'm going to put the scene for you. Okay. Put you right in the middle of it. In Philadelphia is the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. And on this particular date, 2 ships are docked there, meant to be part of an experiment. Now, this was supposed to be the test run. Okay. So as the men on these ships, they're naval seamen, they're on these ships and they're told that they're going to be part of an experiment where they were adding machinery to the boats that would be basically like a small Tesla coil, so pumped full of electronic charges. And once these generators were turned on, what they were testing to see is if the ship would be, in air quotes, right, invisible. And what they meant by that is they were trying to make them invisible to German mines. Okay. Because those mines were finding boats by measuring electronic or magnetic fields. What's up, oddballs? We've got a little surprise for you. Our first event is finally coming around. We are going to be doing a little event at the Haunted Eloise Asylum in Michigan. Kara, tell us about the details.
Okay, so the details are it is going to be April 19th, and it is going to start at 6 p.m. and go until midnight. And Zachary, what are we doing at Eloise?
We are bringing in the wonderful Lauren Haunts, where we're all going to build our own investigative equipment that we get to take home with us. And what are we doing from there?
Okay, so after the workshop that we have with Lauren and we build our equipment, we're going to actually go use our own equipment that we just built, and we're going to investigate Eloise.
So we hope you all can make it. Tickets are going to be very limited. We're holding it for 20 people max. The link is down below. And Kara, let's wrap this up.
Well, we hope to see you there, and we hope you creep real, you little eyeballs.
Goodbye.
Bye. Okay, yeah, I do kind of vaguely know this, but not enough. So, okay, cool.
So the USS Eldridge naval destroyer is going to be first up for the experiment. So within the course of a few minutes, observers watching it, right, see a bunch of people out on the decks, like it looks really lively, and all of a sudden it starts to kind of look like a ghost ship. What's happening is the men are being pulled inside for the machinery to be pulled on. So the machinery gets flipped on, and a humming noise begins. Gets pretty weird from here. So as folks are watching, It starts to kind of appear to smoke a little bit, like it's smoking.
You're saying that people that are watching, not on the ship,
Yes.
like off of the ship, watching the ship.
Most of the witness, and it comes down to one very not powerful, but one specific
Prominent.
witness.
Okay.
He is on the second boat, which is the USS Forsyth. So this story is basically from his
okay.
point of view.
Got you.
So it starts to get smoky, which then it's turning into haze, like a fog around the ship, but it's like green.
Ew, like toxic.
So the green fog is now enveloping not only the ship, but the water around it. And the humming is getting louder and louder. So the ship starts to become harder to see through the haze.
Okay.
Then a blinding flash of white light comes from the center of the haze.
And then it's gone?
Moments later, they look at the ship and they're amazed at what they see because the haze is still there. The Eldridge is there for a moment, but they're able to see through it and see men walking around inside the ship. And then, as you said, yes, it's gone.
Oh.
In like a single moment, an entire naval destroyer disappears.
Okay. I have so many questions.
So the haze is still there. It clears up a little bit. Me too, girl. I don't know if I'm going to answer many of them. Haze is still there, right? And then moments later, another bright flash of white. USS Eldridge reappears in the exact same spot.
Oh.
Completely silent, and the haze lifts.
Okay, because my first question was just going to be, did anyone like try to go over there and see if they could touch it? Like, was it truly invisible but there? But then we're saying this happened within seconds, and then it came...
Moment. So it was a couple minutes. Yep.
And then it just reappeared, but nobody's on it now, I'm assuming.
The very next line, one member from the other boat tries to reach into the haze and his hand actually gets repelled from it. This happens while the ship is actually gone. Okay. And then it reappears. Then they board the ship. And what they find is absolutely horribly, wildly disturbing.
Oh.
Yeah. But we'll come back to that. Okay.
I guess I don't know much about... I thought I knew more. Okay. This is exciting.
Before we understand what was actually happening on the ship, we need to go back. Okay. This was 1943, so that's height of World War II when they're testing this out. Obviously why we're trying to figure out how to, not get killed by Axis mines and U-boats and all that stuff. Before World War II, obviously Nazi Germany is rising to power. They start to do unspeakable things to the Jewish community. And one gentleman decides to leave Germany. In 1936, he ends up in America. You might have heard of him before. His name is Albert Einstein. Okay. Like the genius, right? So famous for his theory of relativity, changed the world of physics, right? I think like we don't understand how much technology his theories have actually created.
Helps create.
Like the modern world is so based on stuff that he was able to figure out, right?
Do you think... Sorry, I was just going to say, I know that he is classified as a genius, and this might sound dumb, but do you think he really was a genius, or do you think that he just had such an open mind?
I think both. I think he was willing to step outside of things, but he really, they tested him for IQ and all that kind of stuff. He was, I think it was a bit of both. And I think it was a bit too of, really a lack of fear, right? He got up and left Germany. He went to a bunch of different countries.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay.
And part of the issue that we'll find with him, right, is he also kind of throws caution to the wind. Mm-hmm. Anyways, though, so in 1940, World War II now is like on the brink of breaking out. It's kind of started. And Einstein writes a letter to President Roosevelt stating that he knows that the Germans are working on a nuclear program and recommended that the U.S. does the same. Mm-hmm. And you know what happens at work when you bring up an issue? Becomes your issue to fix. So he begins to work on the Manhattan Project, which is the super secret project about creating and developing the nuclear bombs, right? Okay, important to know this. Until the bomb was perfected, the Manhattan Project was insanely secretive. Mm-hmm. When it came out and it worked, we learned about the experiment. Right. Or the project.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I got you. I get where we're going.
Yeah. Around this same time, right? So he's changing the world on physics. He's changing the world on the way we're going to fight wars. He also gets interested in this thing called unified field theory. Lots of people have also talked about it since then. A lot of people claim that Einstein solved this theory and that it was found to be so dangerous that he kind of destroyed the work. But a lot of physicists now actually sort of renounce it. And I don't know if it's because it's just too powerful or what, right? So
Okay.
I'll be honest with you. This story is going to be split 50-50 down the middle. Half of you are going to think it's a hoax. Half of you are going to think it's real. I don't know where I sit. Okay, so unified field theory aims to describe mathematically and physically this is copy and paste, the interrelated nature of the forces that comprise electromagnetic radiation and gravity. In other words, uniting the fields of electromagnetism and gravity into one field. For example, if you were able to bend light, then space-time would also be bent. Effectively, mastering this theory, you could create invisibility devices or time machines.
Okay.
That's the most layman way I can explain it.
Still doesn't work in my brain, but I kind of understand.
Yeah. Fast forward a couple of years, 1943, now we're dead set in the middle of World War II. We're getting our asses handed to us in the water. Well, actually, we're not really getting our asses handed to us, but we could get the upper hand in the water. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the Philadelphia experiment is born. So we're going to go back to that shipyard now. So according to accounts, unspecified researchers thought that by applying some version of the theories from the unified field theory, you could enable an object to be fitted with electric generators that would allow them to bend light around the object so that it would become completely invisible. Okay. Obviously, military would want this kind of technology, right? Because if they were able to make their ships invisible in the water, you have an insane upper hand. Now, remember earlier, though, I told you what the men on the boats were told, that it wasn't actual invisibility, but it was this ability to make them invisible to minds.
Okay, right. Yeah, I forgot that part. Okay.
Every bit of research I found, both these things were always kind of presented as true. And in my brain, the only way I can kind of explain how it went down is the researchers on the secret project were probably trying to make the ship invisible for all intents and purposes.
Correct.
The guinea pigs who were aboard the boat it would be much easier to sell them on the experiment if they're saying, hey, this is just going to make it appear that the minds can't find you, right? But like we're not actually changing anything physically. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too. I would go that way.
It's supposed to be carried out on 2 destroyers. They were going to do a test run on one of them and then a full run on both, right? So the test was only to involve the Eldridge. And the full run would be done on the Eldridge and the USS Forsyth. So the story I told you earlier, that's when they're running the test of it, where the ship actually completely disappears from view and then reappears moments later.
Okay.
But when you start to look into this story deeper and some of the other accounts, it didn't just turn invisible.
Well, yeah, it disappeared for moments.
Mm-hmm.
But how many moments?
Not many.
But how many moments here and how many moments wherever they were?
Yes. So there's some weirdness there. But before I get to that, let's talk about what happened when it reappeared. Okay. Again, depending on who you ask, who is telling this story, you have different explanations. One is that the crew was so completely nauseous from the haze and these machines that they deemed it was too unsafe to try to run this experiment again and scrapped it.
Wait, so they're saying that it never happened?
They're saying that it happened, but because when the ship reappeared, the men were so sick from these machines that were turned on.
So they're implying that the men were still on the ship when it reappeared?
Yes.
Got you.
Okay. The other explanation is that, yes, the men were sick. Those who were making complete sentences. Others had gone absolutely, completely mad. And a good chunk of them were fused to any metal surface. The bulkheads, the doors, hands fused to it, legs fused to body parts. Some people say there was just faces sticking out of the metal, as if like the inorganic and organic material just became one. So as the ship comes back, you have people literally just screaming out in pain.
Okay, let me just ask one clarifying question.
Hold on to it for one more minute. The other thing that happened is that many of the men just straight up disappeared.
That's what my clarifying question was.
Okay. Crazy. Fused to the ship. Gone.
Okay, so we don't actually know if there was still men on that ship, if they whatever. Okay, so these are the three not theories. These are the three stories we're being told. Okay.
So it's not three stories. There's
Well,
one
three accounts.
One account said that the men were just sick and he was on the first death, so they were never going to run the experiment again. The other one is saying it was a horror show. People were sick, mad, fused to the ship, and a lot had disappeared.
Okay. So you have two accounts essentially from two different people. Mm-hmm. So it's like, who are we believing? Okay. And I'm so sorry. I know one was on the other ship watching. Where was the other one? Both on the other?
I only know the one account was on the ship.
Sorry, I'm trying to keep track of all of this.
Here's the other thing that's going to happen. And this is a convoluted story. At some point, there's going to be another account that says none of it happened.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah. It's coming. But before we get there, we have to talk about what happened between the two white flashes.
Yes, let's get into this.
Okay, so we've touched on it a little bit, but unified field theory is way more about just bending light or making you invisible to minds. If we're taking into account magnetic and gravitational fields, teleportation or time travel could theoretically be possible in this wormhole, time slip, all that kind of stuff, right? Because
it's way over my head, but
if you're bending the dimensional fabrics of reality, you can also, if you bend space and you bend light, right, and all these things, you're bending physics, you can also technically bend space and time.
Okay. I mean, I get it, but I don't.
That is as far as I'm ever going to understand the physics of it. Okay. So if it could do all those things, it would also explain why eyewitnesses would claim that when the ship vanished from Philadelphia, they had seen it appear in the waters in Norfolk, Virginia, 200 miles away.
Okay, that does vaguely sound familiar. I really thought I knew more about this than I do. This is great. Okay, so wow, okay.
So Norfolk, people there say flash, ship on the horizon, couple minutes, flash, ship gone. Okay. Now, the person who brings us the report from what was on the boat, the people fused, screaming, all that kind of stuff, right? We don't know where he was stationed at.
Okay.
But we know he was on the boat because he also noted that the watches and the clocks were all 10 seconds behind. So it seems to have traveled in both space and time. It somehow lost 10 seconds. Nothing insane.
Interesting.
But it was noted on enough things that to this gentleman, it must have also traveled in time. Okay. That is literally all we have on this experiment. And that's why it's taken me so long to run it. Because I could tell you the story of this a bunch of times in 10 minutes, but it does nothing, right?
Okay. The people that saw it, were those just random people that reported it? Do we know?
We know the person on the foresight who saw it. We don't know anything really about the guy who saw the carnage.
Yeah, I'm talking about when it went to Norfolk.
Norfolk?
I'm just curious.
We don't have
bunch of people. Was
people acknowledge direct accounts of it. We have basically this gentleman who is on the first death. He is going to break the story and he's going to talk to a lot of people. But a lot of what we have comes from him, which is why we don't have a lot of names or evidence. And I'm going to tell you why in a little bit.
Okay. All right.
But there's going to be a cover up. I've already alluded to that. Mm-hmm. And Norfolk comes up in the cover up. So whatever people saw, there was enough credence to it that the military was like, we're going to explain this. So what do we know so far, right? We're in World War II. We know that Einstein is making crazy advances in physics, and that he's working on things that stayed secret until they were successful, right?
Yep.
We do know there was at least a handful of eyewitnesses who claimed that the Navy and the government were going to test an equipment to do something. Mm-hmm. We have a good idea that the true nature of the experiment was hidden from the people involved in it. And here's where you can make an argument. Maybe they were just trying to make it invisible to minds. They put these things on and, we just discovered, time travel and teleportation. Yep. We don't know if it was coincidental or accidental or intentional. Okay. But we do know that there was some crazy consequences. And while we don't have strong evidence about the carnage on the ship, we know whatever happened was obviously bad enough that we didn't try this experiment again because the government does what they do with all their failures. We have a giant cover up coming and they create it into a hoax. So I want to come back to the cover up part. Okay. But I want to talk about the gentleman who told and broke the story and is the reason we all know of it today. Okay.
Let's go.
The mist, right? The green haze. There's a guy in the Forsyth. He sticks his hand in it, right?
Yep.
That hand belongs to Carl M. Allen.
Okay.
And Carl M. Allen is very, very creative.
Okay.
Because when he starts to talk about the story, he creates an alias, Carlos Miguel Allende.
I mean, hey.
All right. Okay.
It's probably easy to remember.
13 years after the event, 1956, Allende sends the first of more than 50 letters to author and astronomer Morris K. Jessup.
Okay.
Jessup at the time was on a publicity tour for his book that he published
I thought you were going to say publicity stunt. I think you went stunt and tour and blended.
I think so. And his book is called The Case for the UFO.
Oh.
We get a little alien-y. So this book was about unidentified objects in our sky and how he tried to explain their anti-gravity ability and their propulsion systems. And he seems to suggest in his book that it has something to do with electromagnetism and the gravity fields. So he emphasized that he actually was having a breakthrough on revising Einstein's unfinished unified field theory, and it was critical to his explanation of the UFOs.
I'm so sorry. How long after this?
13 years.
13 years. Okay.
13 years, like Carlos writes the first letter to Jessup.
Okay.
Which is 1956. The book came out the previous year in 1955, so it would have been 12 years after.
Gotcha. I just want to know. So 13 years since the incident.
At that point, Jessup, the writer, has no connection to the experiment at all. He just is trying to... the basis of his book for how UFOs travel is very similar to the experiment.
Gotcha.
Okay. Allende writes to Jessup detailing all the details of the Philadelphia experiment, right? So I kind of want to read to you like directly from an article on this.
Perfect.
Okay. So Allende directly responded to Jessup's call for research on the unified field theory, which he referred to as UFT. According to Allende, Einstein had developed the theory, but had suppressed it since mankind was not ready for it. A confession that the scientist allegedly shared with the mathematician and philosopher Bertrand Russell. So Carlos is already kind of building like, hey, this was Einstein's theory. He told this person, right? So he's building credence to his story.
Okay.
So he also claims that he witnessed the Eldridge disappear. And at the time, he was serving on the SS Andrew Forsyth. So he names other crew members with who he served aboard the Forsyth. He claimed to know some of the fate of the crew members on the Eldridge before, during, and after the experiment, right? He's dropping a lot of names, saying he has a lot of evidence, right? He's even saying that he watched one of these men just completely dematerialize during a bar fight after the experience.
Okay.
Jessup's like, I'm interested, right? Jessup's he's doing UFO shit. He's all about this. So,
I mean, yeah, if you're already doing that stuff, you're going to listen to anybody that has other way. Because you got to figure nowadays we can find a weirdo on the street and we can just like you just told us about your account. What was it? Accountant being a weirdo. Oh, so it's like nowadays everybody's a weirdo because it's at our fingertips. But then it's like not everybody's like that, right? So like as soon as somebody's like, oh my God, sends you a letter about it, you're like, yeah, let me hear this shit.
Yeah. So, I mean, 50 letters back and forth, right? Allende further insists that the U.S. Military conducted the experiment and then obviously tried to cover it up. Okay. One of the last times Jessup responds, he responds with a postcard, and he's basically at this point demanding that Carlos Allende provides some of this evidence that he's claiming that he has. Okay. He gets a reply from Carl M. Allen. So it's like he accidentally forgot to put his name.
I had to think about it for a second. Okay, yeah.
Really, really weird here. And this is where like I tried to read this in different articles and it never made sense to me. But almost every article mentioned it. Jessup sends this postcard to Carlos still at the time.
Okay.
He gets a notification that the letter is undeliverable. What doesn't make sense to me, it didn't say they sent the letter back or anything. He got a notification. I don't know how mail worked back then. Okay, maybe it was different. But like now if it's undeliverable, you get your mail back.
I think you'd probably get a random letter that says like this was undeliverable. Like, you know how sometimes they would post it on your door?
Well, no, I'm not talking about Carl. I'm talking about Jessup, the writer, sends a postcard to Carl never gets the postcard back, but is told that the postcard was undeliverable to the address.
No, I know. I meant like, because you said, how did he get a notification? I think he probably got...
You would think they would just send the undeliverable mail back.
That's what I'm saying, but they probably like sent another letter. Like,
yeah. Anyways, after getting that, he still received a response from Carlos. Now it says Carl. So this is where it's weird, right? He's been using an alias.
That could just be...
comes undeliverable, and then he gets a response. I know you're going to try to discount it. Don't, because it's going to come up later.
Okay.
Well, you can. I'm sorry. You can. But I'm going to disprove it again.
I'm even just saying, like, I've gotten a thing where I sent an email and it says that it didn't send, but it actually did send. So I'm just trying to think, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay.
Definitely could be a mistake. Absolutely.
Okay.
It's just weird that afterwards the guy's name changes. Okay. So he says he's not able to provide any evidence, but he implied that he might be able to recall some things if he was hypnotized because he feels like something happened that made his memories repressed. So at this point, Jessup is like, this Alan Day,
I'm confused, but I'm like not like, so now he doesn't remember.
Yeah. So, and this is because of Carl's lack of documentation. It made it easier to make it think it was hoaxy.
I know what happened.
Okay.
So he has this letter that has like a bunch of shit in it, right? It's evidence. It's real juicy stuff. So he tries to send it. It does like get intervened and they send something else that's maybe kind of similar. So it seems like the letter got sent. But then after the letter actually gets sent, the men in black come and then they flash him with the little memory eraser thing. And then that's why now he doesn't actually remember. That's why
I don't think you're entirely wrong. Okay. I think it's just a little less the men in black.
Well, I just, you know how they have the little memory eraser.
So anyways, Jessup at this point is kind of like fed up, right? And he's like, whatever, this guy is obviously an imposter. I'm not going to get any real evidence from him. So he stops responding. That was 56.
Okay.
In 57, Jessup, who is about ready to drop the unified field theory altogether, is contacted by two officers from the Navy Office of Naval Research.
Oh, shit.
Or the ONR. So two officers receive a strange package.
Now
it turns out the address on this package is the undeliverable address of Carla M. Allen.
That's what I was thinking.
The package contained a copy of Jessup's book, The Case for the UFO. However, written in all the margins of this book is a conversation between three different people writing notes to each other. One of them seems to be, and breaking down the theory and adding all this evidence and notes and stuff, one of them seems to be written as if they're an extraterrestrial.
Like, how do you mean? Like, just what they're saying?
He's almost like from the point of view as if he was an ET, and they're helping to prove what Jessup was researching. So these naval guys are like, bro, why did we get this mysterious package with your book? What is all this shit? Well, Jessup looks at it and goes, these handwritings all belong to the same person. I have a bunch of correspondence with Carlos Allende.
Right.
It's this guy. So the writings did help Jessup with his research on unified field theory and kind of gave a really theoretical explanation of how propulsion and anti-gravity would work. Okay. This is so weird for government officials. For whatever reason, these two ONR officers published 127 copies of the annotated book using a military contractor called Vero Manufacturing.
Like they published the book with the conversations on the margin?
127 copies, which are like worth a shit ton of money. I don't know.
Oh, I bet they're worth so much. How do we get one?
They're highly collectible.
Okay, yeah.
But this is how the story makes its way into the public, right? And Jessup starts to tell them of the whole thing with this Carlos guy, and he's telling the ONR, the Office of Navy Research, about this experiment that Carl told him about.
Apparently being okay.
Now what we have is Jessup basically saying, hey, this guy you got a weird package from, he told me what you did.
Yeah. I just don't know how I would play this in this time. I mean, even now, I don't know how I would play this, but back then, I don't think that, I think I would be like, I don't fucking know what this is. I have no idea why you got this. And I don't think I would say, I don't know.
I think he's so excited, right? Like if you were handed your book back and then you had the answers, like you can't play it down.
I understand that, but to these Navy officers, I would, because I would be terrified of what they're going to fucking do to me.
But they're like kind of geeked too, and they're like making copies of this thing.
Well,
okay,
maybe
I'm going to
geeks,
guarantee you they got fucking fired because
yeah.
Here's what the story goes afterwards. This reignited Jessup. He got obsessed. It took over his life. Took over his life so much, Kara, that he couldn't live anymore, and he took his own life.
So that he could do what?
Well, he just became obsessed with it. He took his own life. That makes total sense, right? Like the thing you've been spending years and years and years researching, you kind of start to figure it out. So kill yourself?
No, the government killed him.
Perfect. Here we go. Let's get to the cover up. Okay. From what I've put this together, I think there was 4 steps to the cover up. Okay. Brainwash, falsify the documents, bury the lead, deny, deny, deny. All right. So step 1, brainwash.
Yep.
You gotta, anyone who is on these 2 ships, you have to silence them, right? Because your first thing is to say they weren't there. So you brainwash them. So this is why they were all told it was a degaussing experiment. The degaussing is hiding it from the minds.
Yeah.
Okay. So that if things go wrong, you now can easily say, hey, nothing, it was just weird. They just got sick, right? So this green haze can basically, we know what it is. It's
Okay.
St. Elmo's fire. St. Elmo's fire is a substance that can be seen that looks like green flames. And basically, it's highly charged plasma in a strong electronic field. It also causes nausea. Okay. So the people who went crazy from the ship, they were basically dropped in institutions, is my thought.
Well, yeah, because you don't have to worry about them anywhere. They're crazy.
The ones who only saw the sick people, we just tell them, hey, everyone got sick. We're not going to do this to you guys on the other boat. And the rest of them, remember, Carlos, he can't remember everything clearly. They had to have hypnotized some of them. And this was during the 40s, 50s, when we know beyond a doubt that we were messing around with brainwashing. Like, okay.
For sure.
So in the late 80s, a man comes forward because they made a movie about this, a total fictional movie about, the Philly experiment. Well, probably based in fact, but
yeah, it's claimed to be fictional.
So this man named Al Bielek comes forward and he claims that he was part of the experiment and he must have been brainwashed to forget, because after watching the film, everything came back to him. Yep. So in 88, he sees it, everything comes back. So I found this from and this isn't from like an article online. This is from,
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but that's like, I know that anybody can just say, oh my God, it's all coming back to me. I remember everything. But they do say that when you've experienced like a traumatic trauma and like our brains will shut down and forget an event, like I don't even want to get into details of things, but like we forget things. And then they say like, if, because some people are like, well, I'm trying to remember these things. Like if you, oh my God, I'm sorry. I was watching something the other day and this girl couldn't remember. She got hit by a car. It was tragic. And the person that drove away got away and they never got caught, or drove away and they never got caught. And the doctors kept telling her, your memory will eventually come back. It will. And it had been like 15 plus years and it didn't come back. And somebody's like, have you ever gone back to where you got hit? She's like, no, go back to where you got hit. And everything starts flooding in. So that makes sense. Like if you were to see a movie about this.
Here's why that happens too, right? Repression is a defense mechanism of your brain, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so shocking to your core. Now, if you're put in the same situation and go back to the same place, your brain needs to unlock that because now it's keeping you from repeating the same.
Yeah.
trauma.
Okay. Ooh,
okay.
So that makes sense.
So this is from a published, archived journal article. This isn't an online article. This is like a published article, like a scholarly article.
Did you have to pay to get it?
No, because it was archived. It's no longer active. It's become public record.
Okay. Cool.
This is written about Al. So Al claims that he was transported in time to the future and that here in the future, he was brainwashed by the Navy. So this is after, right? So after the experiment, they took these people to the future where they have the capability to do brainwash. The brainwashing led him to believe that his name was Alfred Bielek rather than his true name, Edward Cameron. Upon discovering his true identity, he tracked down his brother, who had also participated in the Philadelphia experiment. Bialik claims that his brother also was sent through time to 1983, but he lost his time lock. We don't know what that is. And as a result, his brother aged 1 year for every hour and eventually died. Like something happened. I know how crazy this sounds, but this is in a published article.
What a time lock, I'm pretty sure is like basically what you just said. Like my time lock right now is I'm 36.
Right.
So he lost his time lock, which aged him differently. Yeah.
Bialik then claims that his brother was reborn. And then it says, needless to say, only a small group of people believe Bialik, and nearly everyone thinks that his stories are based on some truth, but he's exaggerating the truth for personal reasons.
I was just going to say that. I don't believe all that stuff. Continue on.
Yeah, let me get through the article, then we'll discuss it. So this popular opinion seems to be reinforced when Bialik starts remembering things only after having seen the movie, The Philadelphia Experiment. However, it is important to note that Bialik has a PhD in physics, so he does have technical experience. He's also a retired electrical engineer with 30 years of experience. Okay. Because of his obvious intelligence and skill, we could not discount him entirely. Bialik stated that the technology used in the Philadelphia experiment, however, was given to us by aliens. Okay, so that article for me says brainwashing happened and that there is connection between what Jessup was looking into and the Philly experiment.
Yes, but here's what I was going to say. If you were brainwashed, there was some sort of like time slip, time travel, and then you're brainwashed, like this horrible thing happened. I don't know how much I could put on everything that came back to you being accurate, because I can only imagine like your brain's being all jumbled and like, you know, all these doors are opening, shutting in your brain, and it's got to be like just a cluster, right? After all of that. So yeah, I would think that it probably did happen to him. He's probably there. He probably did get, you know, transported, reappeared, whatever happens, right? Whatever we can say in that experiment, something wacky happened. And then, yeah, you're being brainwashed, manipulated, drugged. Who knows what type of shit was going on for that. So I just think that I just don't know what the statistic of when you get your memory back, is it 100%? And there's no way to know that. I don't believe, I don't think there could actually be an accurate statistic of if you have a clear memory from a loss. So to me, it's like, yeah, I like that article said, I don't know if he's lying or exaggerating, or he really just doesn't know what is.
We're not going to be able to determine that. No. And the reason I included it in is because it does tie back to Carl thinking that he lost stuff through brainwashing.
Yeah.
Right. And it's another person who's giving us a similar event who's also tying in the unified field theory. So yeah, we're not going to be able to prove it. We're not going to be able to prove any of this. But I think this gives at least some proof that there was a huge cover up done.
Yeah, for sure.
So now let's go to the second part of the cover up. So now you have, nobody talking about the event. Perfect. Mm-hmm. The second thing you do, you falsify the logs. So every naval ship we know has extensive logs, right?
Yeah, like ridiculous ones. We've covered it in so many episodes.
So the official records state that the USS Eldridge was not commissioned until August 27th, 1943, where it remained in New York City until September. And in September, it was launched on its first test cruise to the Bahamas, which would put it sailing past Norfolk, Virginia, mid-October.
Okay.
So now the official logboats claim that it was never in Philly, but it would have passed by on the way to the Bahamas, explaining why on the horizon, eyewitnesses would have seen this.
It was probably lightning.
Oh, well, it wasn't even lightning. Oh. Have you ever, the flash when you watch the sun come up and down over the horizon? The bright green flash?
Okay.
Yeah, they said that's what it was just a mirage.
Okay.
There was no flashes. It was just so far out on the horizon that it, Okay. So the ONR comes back now, the Office of Naval Research.
Oh, yeah.
They state in September 1996, the ONR has never conducted investigations on radar invisibility either in 1943 or at any other time.
Okay.
So their cover-up statement is there. Here's the fun fact. The ONR, it's the same office that, remember, got Jessup's book, the same office that distributed the story, right? They gave lots of fuel to the fire. In 56, when the book came out, ONR wasn't established until 1946. Of course, they never conducted experiments on invisibility in 1943 because they didn't fucking exist. So if you're going to come out with a statement, say that you didn't do the experiment, make sure you existed as an entity when that happened.
Oh, I was lost. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
So in 1996, the ONR said they never did experiments in invisibility in 1943 or any other time.
Right.
That they said that in 96. In 56, we know they got a copy of Jessup's book, but the office was created in 1946.
Right.
Years after the experiment happened. So it doesn't fucking matter if they say they didn't do it. They didn't exist when it happened.
Right. They could have just said that.
That to me is right there, the proof that this is a cover up, because like they're literally now trying to cover up something that they could have just said, we didn't exist.
Exactly. Like they would just be like, well, we weren't even a unit, whatever.
Okay. So we've got brainwashing. We've got the falsify of the logs. Now we have to bury the lead. Okay. We have two strong leads here. Bielek, they've already discounted him as crazy. So we have Carlos, and we have Jessup. Okay. After Jessup comes out and says that those 3 handwritings are all Carlos, everyone writes him off as a fraud for the rest of it. He writes tons of books on interstellar space travel, UFOs, unified field theory, all this shit. Nobody ever gives him any notoriety because he's labeled as a fraudster already. Which that's the part that
he's labeled as a fraud because he
Carl
said that, Carl's labeled
because Carl starts to write books too.
I'm sorry,
he's labeled as a fraud because Jessup's like,
it's all the same. Got you.
You wrote this all. Which I'm sorry, but I'm thinking if we know that UFO beings can communicate telepathically, it is very possible that Carl wrote all this. I know this one goes really fucking crazy, right? But we have to look at then who is our reputable lead. Jessup, the strong writer, popularizes the theory, right? The ONR gets his book with everything. He's excited. He's about to start figuring it out until he kills himself. So here's the official story. Jessup attempted to make a living writing on the topic, but his follow-up book did not sell well. The publisher rejected several other manuscripts. His wife left him. His friends described him as depressed and unstable. And then he traveled to New York. And after returning to Florida, he was involved in a serious car accident that he was so slow to recover from, which added to his depression. And he was found dead April 20th, 1959.
What's the car accident report?
It wasn't that he died in the car accident.
No, I know. But what's the report of the car accident?
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Yeah, how it happened?
Because that's probably the first attempt.
I think so. And then I think the government made it look like a suicide.
I think that was probably the first attempt to get rid of him. And it didn't work.
Their favorite way to make people, whistleblowers especially. It happens today. How many whistleblowers at big companies do they find shot in the head later? And then we never hear about how it happened. So you've got your 4 point, right? You've discredited or killed anyone. You've changed the logs. You've come out and said you never did the experiment. And there's nobody left really to talk about it, except for the fact that 127 copies of this book got out and it has made its way into popular media because it's been made into movies and books. And we're still talking about it today.
So, okay, continue on. I have a question, but
I just want to leave you with reading the letter that I found from the ONR. And I found this deep in doing research. It's from like another website that has all these archive notes and everything. So it's literally like a typewriter written Department of Navy, Office of Naval Research, Arlington, Virginia. Information sheet. Philadelphia experiment, UFOs. So this is from the 1996, their statement. Okay. Over the years, the Navy has received innumerable queries about the so-called Philadelphia experiment or project. The alleged role of the Office of Naval Research and the alleged role of the Office of Naval Research in it. The majority of these inquiries are directed to the ONR or the 4th Naval District in Philadelphia. The frequency of these queries predictably intensifies each time the experiment is mentioned by the popular press, in a book or a movie, etc. The genesis of the Philadelphia experiment myth dates back to 1955 with the publication of The Case for UFOs by late Morris K. Jessup. Sometime after publication of the book, Jessup received correspondence from a Carlos Miguel Allende, who gave his address as RD No. 1, Box 223, New Kensington, PA. In his correspondence, Allende comments on Jessup's book and gave details of an alleged secret naval experiment conducted by the Navy in Philadelphia in 1943. During the experiment, according to Allende, a ship was rendered invisible and teleported to and from Norfolk in a few minutes, with some terrible after effects for crew members. Supposedly, this incredible feat was accomplished by Albert Einstein's unified field theory. Allende claimed that he witnessed the experiment from another ship and that the incident was reported in a Philadelphia newspaper. The identity of the newspaper has never been established. Similarly, the identity of Allende is unknown and no information exists on his present address. I'm going to stop. This is halfway through it. In their official cover-up letter, they've already fucked up because I was able to find all the obituary information for Allende. No problem. That they say that he sent the book to Jessup with all the annotations talking about the experiment. Jessup had all the letters.
Well, hold on. I'm sorry. I thought the fuck up was that his name isn't really Allende. It was Allen.
Remember, Carlos M. Allen or Carl M. Allen is Carlos Miguel Allende. That's the
but I thought his alias name was Allende, so you wouldn't find an obituary for him.
Right. They also completely ignore the fact that there was all these letters and that the ONR got the book. They say a copy of Jessup's book was mailed anonymously to ONR. Okay, so they do say they got it. Sorry, I didn't read far enough.
No, that's okay.
But they say that he also sent Jessup's book to Jessup explaining everything.
Oh, right. Well,
so there's already inconsistencies.
Well, because he actually tried to, and they know that. They stopped it.
So the last part of their cover-up, they got to talk about the officers. 1956, a copy of Jessup's book was mailed anonymously to the ONR. The pages of the book were interspersed with handwritten comments which alleged a knowledge of UFOs, their means of motion, their culture and ethos, the beings occupying the UFOs, all described in pseudo-science and incoherent terms. Two officers, then assigned to ONR, took a personal interest with the book and showed it to Jessup. Jessup concluded that the writer and the commenters of the book was the same person who had written to him in his book about the Philadelphia experiment. The two officers personally had the book retyped and arranged for a reprint in typewritten form, 25 copies. We already have found more than 25 copies. The officers and their personal belongings have left the ONR many years ago, and the ONR doesn't have a file copy of the annotated book. Sorry, but people do have it. It exists.
Yeah.
So personnel at the 4th Naval District believe that the questions surrounding the so-called Philadelphia experiment arise from a quite routine research which occurred during World War II at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Until recently, it was believed that the foundation for the apocryphal stories arose from degaussing experiments, which have the effect of making a ship undetectable or invisible to magnetic mines. Unlike the genesis of the bizarre stories about levitation, teleportation, and the effects of human crew members, this all happened with a generating plant on a destroyer called the USS Timmerman, the degaussing. In the late 50s, the ship was part of an experiment to test the effects of small high-frequency generators, providing thousands of hertz, instead of a standard 400 hertz. The high-frequency generator produced corona discharges and other well-known phenomena associated with high-frequency generators. None of the crew suffered effects of the experiment. ONR has never conducted any investigations on invisibility, either in 1943 or at any other time. In view of such present scientific knowledge, ONR scientists do not believe that the experiment would be possible. Okay, again, let's talk about inconsistencies here. You just said they probably got confused with other experiments that were being done during World War II. And here, we did this on the Timmerman in the same base in 1955. World War II was over by that point. Like, there's so many inconsistencies in that letter alone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what really sticks out to me is like what I said before, though, because they said, like you said, that he sent Carl, whatever, sent the book with the whatever to Jessup. Okay, but we know he tried to. We can assume that that was like packaged that letter and it got intervened.
No, he sent the book to the ONR afterwards. He was only sending letters back and forth to Allende.
Yeah, but are we sure?
Jessup, I'm sorry.
But are we sure? Do you know what I'm saying? Because we don't really know anything.
We don't know a whole lot of anything. That's where I said this one is so convoluted that even how to set this up makes no sense. But I think like the fact that Einstein, he was part of a ton of secret things, and the ones that came to knowledge were the ones that were successful. There's a reason these officers made 127 copies. They had to know a cover up of something was coming. There's enough of the government saying something happened, but also covering it up in their most typical cover-up ways.
Okay, so here's my question. If we're going with the government and like this didn't happen, okay, we're saying this didn't happen or they got sick, whatever. When he gives all of these letters to Jessup with people and he has all of these like different people, the names, where's the information on those people? Like, did we find them? Like,
that's why Jessup originally stopped corresponding with Alan
because he just
Allende,
wasn't getting enough.
because he wasn't giving anything concrete.
Okay.
Because remember, a lot of these men thought they had different names.
Yeah, but I'm saying that some people got sick or like whatever. So I guess the government would have changed their names. But I guess you can kind of, at that time, you can pretty much scrub any existence of it, old, whatever. Now you can't really do that as much. There's always going to be something out there.
Right.
But that would be my thing, is like, okay, so what happened to all these people that were supposedly there? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I think this one has pervaded for so long that, like, I honestly think here's what they were trying to do. I think they were trying to make the ship invisible on the water. They accidentally figured out teleportation, time travel, whatever, because even we have a supposed quote from Einstein that he solved it and was like, people aren't ready for this yet.
Yeah. I guess I don't know which way to go. I'm sure. I believe that there was this experiment. I believe that this did happen. Mm-hmm. I don't know which way I would feel. Like, I don't know how to tell you what way I feel like it went. I know fucked up things happen. Like, hello.
Yeah.
Like, that's not.
But there's also enough holes, like you're pointing out in Carlos's story, that I don't know.
Yeah. And I mean,
I do think the one thing that I think at least helps prove that this is beyond like a science fiction theory is that Jessup and Einstein were really Einstein worked on the theory. We know the theory tried to exist, right? But the experiment was happening around the same time there that Jessup's also looking into the same theory for similar propulsion or anti-gravity things that, like, theoretically the teleportation and time travel is possible. Whether it happened in this situation, we'll never be able to know, but it's still a fucking interesting conspiracy theory.
No, for sure. And yeah, I mean, we're already like an hour in. So we can't keep debating this because we don't have an answer. And I don't think either one of us have a straight opinion.
Yeah.
But I know you were supposed to ask me again, then would I time travel? Here's my answer. My answer is going to be yes, because I don't necessarily think that this, aside from the ship plopping a little bit somewhere else, it does have the time travel in it, but I don't necessarily think that this story is, it is time travel, but not.
Okay.
I mean, it is, but here's, let me just finish. The reason that I'm saying this is because this was all the way in 43, 42?
43.
If you're, I'm sorry. I hope I don't offend anybody, but you are fucking dumb if you think at this moment in 2025, we don't have the ability to be invisible and teleport. If in 1943, we were already working on it and we did make some sort of strides. We already know this. We're not like, we know that they were working on it. Like that is fact. Whatever the way this went, we do know that. So yeah, now this crazy shit ain't gonna happen because how many years in between is that? We fucking know. Come on.
I'm going to ask you the question again, the way it's written though,
okay.
Not the way you remember it. If given the chance, would you test time travel?
Oh, test it? Well, here's the thing. I still think that I would say yes, because we are in 2025. I don't think that part would happen again. I'm very confident in our technology and not fully confident. Like our technology is crazy, like AI and shit. But I'm just saying, like,
yeah. Oof.
If you were to come to me and be like, hey, this is nothing, just there's going to be case studies and shit. They'd be like, this is the probability. This is how many people have already done it. Like, I'd probably be like, yeah, let's go. Where am I going?
So the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and it's not anything we have to discuss at length, is just a little bit of a thought experiment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure Tenny was talking about this in an episode of
What's Up, Weirdo?
What's Up, Weirdo, where something he was researching, he researched it years and years prior. And when he researched it later, there was all of a sudden a lot more details and a lot more articles.
I think it was Tenny, yeah.
Which is, he made an argument of if time travel back and forth is possible, researching the same thing at different times would give different results.
Yeah, for sure.
I've tried to research this since the 8th grade. I couldn't find half of this information before. Maybe it's the internet getting better. I've tried to write this 2 years ago and I couldn't find a lot of this. Here's the odd case. Can't find any proof to this other than a few TikToks, but apparently the Eldridge was seen in Norfolk in the 80s and very recently in 2024 when the drones and everything came back. Now, remember, we talked about the drones and the plasmoids. Plasmoids are these encapsulated balls of plasma. that either come from the sun or from the earth or from radiation, or what could be a byproduct of time travel, like the St. Elmo's fire.
Ah, so the St. Elmo's fire.
If this is something that's ongoing in the future, they tested it and it went backwards and then from back to forward. Over time, the information we would have access to in our present moment would change. That's the last thing I'll say, because I know we only talked about teleportation. We didn't talk about the time travel.
Like the butterfly effect.
I don't remember seeing a lot of this information before. I'm not trying to say one way or the other. I'm just saying,
no, but I mean,
this one's fucking weird. And I think, I know for a fact, theoretically, with how time travel has to exist, we've cracked it, but the general public ain't ready for it.
No, we're not. This episode was a whirlwind. I'm just like kind of sitting here like, I want to turn my brain off.
I told you, I knew this one was kind of a lot.
No, it's a good a lot. So this is one that I'm going to have to, once you put the episode out, when this comes out, I'm going to have to re-listen to it because I need to listen to it as a listener. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not as you like us recording. I need to listen to this
honestly,
again as a listener.
I've tried to write this one so many times because it's like, what order do you put it all in, and how do you make the most sense? Because none of it makes sense. The cover up side doesn't make sense. If this is real, it just, the whole thing makes zero sense. But I loved it because it's like, it's one of those conspiracies that does government cover up boats, aliens, like all my favorite shit.
I think it makes sense that it happened. And I don't even know if making sense is the correct terminology we should be using or verbiage, because it makes sense. All of these different little stories, blips that happened. It makes sense. It's just everybody is trying to cover something or add to something else. And so that's what doesn't make sense. Is just because it's confusing. But it's
we're talking 80 years ago at this point. The objective truth is lost. Everyone has played a game of telephone.
It makes sense that this happened. It makes sense that we were testing it and then this bad shit happened. It does make sense that it could have been time travel, or it really could have been invisibility. And then it also makes sense that the government would want to cover this up, and it would make sense that, somebody would eventually remember, because that's going to happen.
Right.
And then it makes sense. It's just fucking weird and intertwined.
The only thing I'll say to end it is, maybe we need to stop looking at this event as something that happened and start looking at it as something that's happening.
Yeah, for sure. I agree.
So that's the Philadelphia experiment. I finally did it.
Holy cannoli.
I know. We've gone really long.
Zachary, I don't know how long this is going to be.
Yeah, I cut stuff.
And I've stayed quiet for a lot.
You did impressively well. Okay, so with that, leave a boat emoji. We love you. We appreciate you. We're going to let you out of here really quickly.
Like
Kara.
a little ship. There's a ship emoji, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. All right.
Wow. Okay. Well, I hope that you guys feel like I do in this, where you're going to have to go back and re-listen. Be a listener again, because it's
tell us what you think on this one too.
Yeah, this is crazy. I need to know. All right. No, this was cool. I loved it. Thank you so much for finally doing this, because it was so much information. I feel like that we probably all didn't know all of it. So that's cool. All right. Leave a ship emoji and maybe like green smoke if there's green smoke.
Perfect.
Do all the other things we already asked. I'm delusional.
Let's say the magic words. Let's let them go.
The most important thing that you can do is to creep it real, yeah, balls.
Goodbye.
Bye.